All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Good. All right. So we're live with Ahmed, and we'll be working on his Mercury and Aries in the eighth. Okay. So sport comes up for me straight away. Do you play sport?
I don't currently play sports. I like grew up playing soccer until I was about, I want to say like 14, and then I like ran cross country from like 14 to 18.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But I am competitive. Like if that tangentially sort of relates to sports, I think I don't like to lose. If it's like me and my friends playing a game while we're out, we like to play a game called Imposter. I don't know if you're familiar, but everyone gets a word. Somebody doesn't get the word, but they're secretly the imposter and try to figure out the word um, through a series of people just going around and saying like free association words related to the word that everyone got. Um, and I hate losing that game.
Okay. That makes me think especially about just your Aries stellium, especially the Sun-Saturn conjunction, that you're very competitive and you want to win. Okay.
No, yeah, for sure.
Okay. What would you say about your way of talking with other people?
I, I'd say I'm like animated, I'm full of energy, conversationally. I relate through language ever since I was young. I think like relating through language is a way to get um like to work through like maybe nervousness or anxiety that I might have, particularly when I'm meeting new people. Um Sometimes I have nothing to say in group settings when I'm talking to strangers. Um and that like maybe creates tension because what I'm used to is using language to like kind of disarm folks or conversationally when I'm with my friends or people I'm used to. Yeah, I've been told like I'm a great storyteller, that I like am animated in my conversations. Um, like I'm happy to get into like more details about any of these things I just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm interested in the part. I'm hearing the Mercury and Aries, of course, but I'm interested in the disarming, especially using
Yeah,
language
I
to
think.
relate. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think I'm. I naturally like more lately than like before. Like I'm 29, so I think like over the past 4 years, I've like either grown a nervousness or like when I'm speaking to people that I don't know or like meeting people for the first time, or I am just allowing myself to feel it more. Like it's always been there, but now I'm just like sitting with that anxiety a bit more, that nervousness. And I think when I'm like processing in my head, like that feeling, a lot of the time, and like it's a fear, but like in a general sense, a fear, an anxiety or whatever. But I think I like default to like, oh, just like sort of like heuristics in my head about how a conversation could go or like what I'm about to get into. Um, Conversationally, I rely on that to quelch my nervousness and maybe just like um what disarm like the other person or like the situation like where people are like, oh, he's harmless or he's like fun to talk to, like have them open up to me while I'm opening up to them. I think I get my nervousness when I know we're not speaking about it, but Virgo rising and my Mars and Virgo in the first house. I think they're like, so if my Mercury's in Aries and my Mars in Virgo, I think it's like they're mutually something. Like the ruling planets of both signs are in the opposite. Yeah. So I see a lot of that come into play, like how I feel like come off to strangers versus like how I'm actually come off isn't always as accurate as like what's going on. Like there may be like it's not turmoil, but just like the frenetic energy maybe internally that isn't shown on my face or I try to hide on my face.
Interesting. That's making me think especially about your Mercury Saturn conjunction, that you have this nervousness about conversation with other people that makes you second guess, especially when it's like new interactions, right, Aries, when it's your first time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then I imagine when you're with your friends, you're one of the more vocal, more exciting, more bringing things in, more suggesting things, more vocal.
Definitely. Definitely. Like we can like just keep going. And I feel like best when I'm with like loved ones, friends and family, like the best version of myself conversationally or just like even as another human being. Like I'm not plagued by that same nervousness and um am like kind of down to drive or steer conversations, whether that's like just suggesting an activity for us to do or like a conversation topic for us to discuss, or even like interrupting and like steering a conversation a different direction for a second mid conversation.
Do you feel the Aries in that?
I think so. It's like it's more bold than like when I am speaking to like a stranger or someone for the first time. Like it's more charged.
Aries is also the one to disrupt and to start
Mm-hmm.
something new, to choose a new path, and to be
Mm-hmm.
the one to kind of get in the way, right? Aries the first.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, when you interrupt and you start subjects and you drive conversation in your direction, there I feel the Mercury in Aries, like being the one to start the conversation
Mm-hmm.
or to interrupt the previous pattern in language.
Yeah, no, now that you lay it out like that, I definitely see the Aries in that. Um, and it's like very quick. So I'll have an idea or something will come to mind and it'll just come out. So I also feel the Aries in that as well, where it's like a less filtered process. Whereas when I'm with somebody new or like in a more formal setting, perhaps where it's like maybe I need to turn down sort of that Aries ambition or that drive, like that the filtering process is unnatural to me, but
Uh-huh.
um, I do think I can access it. But I guess it makes me second guess or like because Virgo rising, like just overly critical, or maybe even the Saturn conjunct the Mercury, like overly critical about other things that are happening at that time, or like maybe not even critical, but just like paralysis analysis, where I'm like the filter is on, but maybe it's turned up a few notches too high, where it's like I'm not as smooth or like the swaggiest version of myself because it's like a lot of like debating if this is something I should say or
Oh,
like
that
should
makes
I
me
be
think
as
about
bold.
the opposition to your moon in Libra.
I know, and it's like a full moon baby. I think.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yes, when you talk about like deliberating whether this is appropriate or not, should you say it? So I'm feeling the Libra activity coming in and stopping the air. But what I'm also hearing from you is the Sun Saturn in the sense of like it feels like a lot of self-analysis. Like you're I'm just hearing how you're like observing yourself and your patterns and you're commenting on yourself and you're noticing how you behave. There's just like a second level of cognition about, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. And I also think this is a newer phenomenon for me. Like just to be like just maybe too aware or like too concerned with how I'm coming off or how I'm being perceived. And I try to practice like just not engaging that or also just like to realize that oftentimes there's such a like departure between like how I feel like I might be coming off in like the lowest vibration when I'm critical versus how it actually is. Like if I'm very nervous, for example, and I feel like, oh, they can tell that I like don't have my shit together. And then I'm just like, and then I have an opportunity, I don't know exactly the situation, but to like cross reference that sort of analysis about myself with someone else's perception, whether it's like Oh, I have an instance, like, and you can interrupt me if I'm just like going off on a tangent, but like in a work setting one time, I gave a presentation to like senior leadership and in front of my team as well, and like was very nervous. Like I almost forgot to breathe, but like I kept pushing through and I got through it. And then at the end, after the leadership left, I like talked to one of my closest colleagues about it, and I was like, "Girl, that was a lot. Like now I can like take." I was very nervous. Whether she was being completely honest or not, she was like, "No one could tell. Like you just no one could pick up on that nervous energy during your presentation." So an example of just like now I'm forgetting where we how we even got here, but how like that analysis or that higher cognition of like trying to like understand how I'm coming off or like maybe control how others are perceiving me isn't always an accurate assessment either. So it's like it leans towards like hypercritical, I would say, instead of it just being a more neutral,
Okay,
balanced assessment.
that for me is very much your Sun Saturn in the seventh, right? The Sun in the seventh being like putting the attention on what other people are thinking about you, or how they're responding, and who they are, or whatever, right? And the Sun Saturn. So like being very critical of yourself, needing to present very well.
Mm-hmm.
There I feel the Sun Saturn very much. But the Mercury is coming up a lot just listening to you speak. Because first of all, once you get started, I see that you don't need to be prodded. You just keep going.
Yeah.
And then you almost stumble over some of your words because it's like your brain is working so fast. That's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see the Mercury and Aries in that?
I do. I do. I think I can like enter sort of like a flow state where it's just coming, coming, coming. And I would have to like be like cognizant to like try to slow down, which I'm trying to do right now just because you like mentioned it. But I think yeah, like if I have a spark conversationally idea wise, I can just let it rip, you know? And just keep going. I think one idea begets another idea, and the flow just kind of just snowballs and just keeps going.
Okay. Um, are you a rapper or a lyricist?
No, but I like to sing and I write. So, and I do appreciate like rap, like really good lyrics. So like I'm a like connoisseur and I love like a double entendre, but also like not something that's too obvious. One of my favorite rappers is this artist named Young Thug, and he's so um he like uses many different octaves um to like perform these different characters while he's rapping in the same song, and then also he's like an ad lib genius. So like half of his lyrics are just like onomatopoeias or like not even real words, and he like raps fast. His flow is faster. He uses like metaphors, but they're not obvious, and like you would just have to like think for a second about what he means for it to like come the meaning to come to life.
Okay, I'm starting to feel the eighth house coming up just slowly. There was another word as well. Like it's also a musical term like drilling. Do you like the drill rap?
I do. I mean, I live in Brooklyn, so it's like a very popular genre throughout New York City. Um, like I don't like like violent rap. Like if it's all about like murder gang shit, slaughter gang shit, then I'm like, I could appreciate it, but it's not like what I turn on. So therefore, most of my favorite drill rappers are women who like kind of will tiptoe that line, but have like a more feminine sort of prowess to their lyrics. And so they're the same style, but like not as much like
Interesting.
violence. Yeah.
Okay, I'm feeling the Virgo in that a little bit, and also the eighth house, and also the Sun Saturn. And when you
Mm-hmm.
also talked about like recognizing the different octaves that are being used to make the melody, there I felt the moon in Libra.
How
Happy.
so?
Um, being able to appreciate someone who can, I can't even explain, it's something that I see and feel. Like when you're
I trust
making
you.
a song and you have to figure out how to balance the songs. You have to make a lot of stylistic choices in
Mm-hmm.
order for it to be
Mm-hmm.
harmonious in the end, right? So being able to recognize when someone's going to this octave or like the appreciation of the harmony, that part I feel in the moon in Libra.
That makes sense. Pink Panthers is another artist who I appreciate that does that. Like the multiple octaves. Like she can go like her lowest octave and then a lot of like she lives up here. Usually her bass line is like up here, but then
And,
she'll go back and forth.
and her songs are also very short, right?
Yeah, very short, like a minute 75. I think she's an Aries sun. I learned that after I liked her. So
Okay. Tell me what you do. I guess you're a student. What do you do for work?
for work, I work in like healthcare operations. So like um it's this organization that started off as like an HIV AIDS advocacy group in the city during like the ACT UP era in the 90s. Since then, it's like behemoth into like direct service provision for people who are less resourced for housing and healthcare. So like they do still provide their like bread and butter of like HIV care and treatment. But now they just do like primary care provision to a lot of folks in the community. They have community health centers. And I do like operations slash advocacy slash policy. So a lot of like, if there are changes in the law, for example, that will impact our ability to provide services, it's doing that analysis, presenting to the team, coming up with like new policies to be in compliance, and also sometimes trying to change those new laws and regulations on the onset. So a little bit of like offense in terms of like trying to make more funding streams available, laws more favorable towards like more accessible healthcare provision or like housing provision, and then a little bit of defense when like a negative law is implemented and or passed and like in states that's kind of the status quo right now, like taking away people's healthcare, taking away people's housing, making things more inaccessible and expensive. It's a lot of like, how can we move some pieces around to continue to provide services without having any disruption?
Okay, I'm feeling the eighth house very strongly in your work because
Mm,
first of all, you're working with people's like most private information, and also you're like kind of, as I see it, the middleman between them and the resources they're looking for.
mm-hmm.
So, and also like the part where you say, for example, that one of the offensive moves you have is to make additional funding streams available, eighth house. But the thing is that the funding is not even for you, right? It's for other people.
Right,
And
right,
where,
exactly.
for example, you would suggest a new policy initiative, right? When it's something new, Aries, and then the
Mm-hmm.
policy itself, Mercury. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so like and that is also making me think about all the changes that must be happening there all the time.
Yeah,
The Aries.
yeah, yeah, definitely. That resonates. I think I'm using like my natural proclivities to be of service to people, which I do find joy in. That comes naturally to me to like problem solve, but like through the lens of like shared resources, to your point, other people's resources, their access to them. There is a lot of turnover, changes on like a regular cadence that I have to be sharp to, and then also be able to pivot, like sort of like strategy or just like learning skills on the go as well. So like I went to school for stuff and I have like academic knowledge about some of this stuff, especially like the analysis and stuff. But then like when I'm dealing with people and a lot of people whose like livelihoods are on the line, because like if you don't get your HIV ARVs, then your viral load increases, like other things become like more stressful. And so like just different personalities in a city like New York, where people are like not afraid to show them, has forced me to like come up with like new people skills, even just like deal with people sitting in that middleman zone.
Oh, that's interesting. Like why? Do you talk to some of the people that are directly or are you just like
Yeah.
in the back
So
of the
like I'm no, like I'm explaining things to clients through like workshops, like
uh,
updated policy, um, updates in policy workshops, also explaining things to legislators, right? So like here, I need to gather client stories and how potential laws will impact them. Like I know it from an analytical general perspective, but to place like personalized stories into these narratives is part of the job. And so that story collection and then relaying in both directions, right? So like from client to rule makers and then from rule makers to client in terms of how things are changing. And then I also present to like leadership because I'm tracking this stuff on a more intimate level. And so they need to know on an executive level, like how this might change operations.
okay, you feel the eighth house in that, right? Like also
Yeah,
when
for sure.
informing the people about what changes are happening in policy and therefore how is that going to change their access to what is available to them and what other options are there now?
Yeah, definitely. I do. I like wish it was sexier topic. Like I wish I could teach people about like all this to say is that well I haven't even said anything, but like I don't know if I'm wedded to the role, right? Like I think I'm good at it. I um appreciate being of service again, but long term it just doesn't excite me the way I would like to be stimulated by sort of the stuff that I do on a daily basis.
Okay, let's talk about that in a minute. I want to still stick with the role for just a bit.
Yeah,
Do you also have to talk with those people and because you get their stories yourself, is it?
yeah, I do. I do.
And the stories I'm gonna guess are kind of it's not like a nice and funny story, right? These people are telling you about painful things that are happening.
Well, most of it is doom and gloom. Like if I don't have access to X, Y, Z service, my life will change for
Okay,
the negative
so do
and
people get
this
really
way.
intense about that? Do they suddenly like like kind of critical?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They could go to like I'm asking them to go to the worst case scenario, right? And so in doing so, they do get like a little bit animated, and then I become like a vessel for sort of their existential projection, right? Which is kind of what I'm asking them to do. But there is also a few times where I'm like trying to turn that into a positive. So, like, how has this service improved your life? How have you become more a more like dynamic member of the community because you're not thinking about access to healthcare because your viral load suppression is lower? Like, I want both. I never want to leave them with just like, oh, this is the end for me, like I'm just like sort of like gathering an obituary, but like more so I need to hear that because it is important, but like can we also touch on like how this has like changed your life for the better, like just because they're the same side, they're opposite sides of the same coin.
Hmm. Okay, I get it. So there's a lot of being informed by them and also informing them of the changes that are taking place as they're
Hmm.
taking place consistently over time.
Yep,
Okay. Right. So there I feel the Aries, right? The change, informing people about the change.
for sure. And then maybe also just like the eighth house transformation sort of themes, like that's like a double whammy
Yeah,
too,
like
because
the HIV, I feel very much in the eighth house.
hmm hmm
Yeah, working with something that is so kind of, well, I don't know.
like existential for sure, and like it's not a death sentence anymore, but it does carry that stigma. Even early on in the role, like I had to like create emotional barriers because I'm queer. I like don't have HIV, but just like to be in that world on a regular basis, like via osmosis, I kind of am assuming other people's fears or owning them in a way that wasn't healthy for me, you know? And so I had
Oh,
to put up some walls. I had to learn how to create some walls early on because I was carrying that, internalizing it maybe a little too much in my life outside of work.
oh, that's interesting. Like how? Can you give an example?
Like I would just have like a primary care physician checkup and like be like overly anxious about like my STI panel. And she's like, "Why are you worried? Like aren't you having like, you know, like aren't you like taking measures or whatever and precautions?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't know, I'm still like anxious, you know, about it." And it's like an anxiety
Interesting.
inducing thing anyways, but just, you know, I think, and then so I would share with her like my job, my primary care physician, and then she would point that out. Like you're working in this space on a regular basis, you need to like create like some sort of emotional barrier so that you're not assuming other people's stories, narratives.
Wow. Do you hear the Mercury in
Hmm.
there?
A
Assume,
little, but I would appreciate.
assuming other people's narratives, assuming other people's stories and narratives, Mercury in the eighth.
Yeah, yeah, because the eighth house is like other people's or like shared resources, um, and then the Mercury is like the narratives part.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I feel the Aries, especially in your work, because the work is so critical. It's not like low energy. There's a lot of energy in that, and there's a lot of disruption.
Hmm.
And it's yeah, I just feel the Aries, the Mars of HIV. It comes with sex. It's mostly with men, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then also, like not to like pathologize these people, but also a lot of them got it through like drug use or like impulsive decisions, you know? Like so there is that as well. Like just like feeling a desire, acting on it and like not, which is like human nature. So I'm saying all this in like a descriptive manner and not sort of like morality or a value judgment, but there is that energy in this world as well. And I can see it in my clients to this day. So like we often like will encourage them to use that energy um in like more healthy ways because it still exists within them. So like whether it's like some sort of art community or like wellness community or whatever it may be. But yeah.
Oh, okay. You said that you're not married to the, of course. How would you be? What do you see yourself doing, or what other projects have you enjoyed in your life?
Yeah, I really, really love um just like I love working with people. I do. Like and I also love being a source of advice. And I maybe it's like my um joy for like seeing how like a new idea or nugget of wisdom might change somebody's like outlook or just like perspective on an issue, a direction in their life. Um, and I also love like when my friends come to me with like qu- questions and asking for advice, whether it be for like mostly interpersonal stuff, so like relationship stuff, like or just like if they're single, like um, whatever like sadness or issue that they're going through, and I also enjoy like dream work and Jungian analysis and just like doing research in that archetypal space. One of my favorite shows slash personalities as of late is this woman named Dr. Orna from Couples Therapy. And she's like a rock star to me. Like every time I see her on social media or whatever, I just have to like pause because I always learn something new from her. Um, and so, and I've also been a client in therapy in the past, and I've appreciated being on the receiving end of that. So I think like it's not nothing serious. I haven't taken steps yet, but doing some sort of psychoanalysis work with others, or like maybe even just like sharpening my toolkit, even if it's not a professional thing, like the same advice giving, being a middleman between knowledge and like a solution or other people seeking advice, living in that shared space still, and working with people, but more on like theoretical or um like an abstract framework. Sometimes they're dealing with like the taboo or like stuff that you wouldn't just go to like your primary care physician about, or stuff that are not as concrete, such as like access to healthcare, but like a bit more open-ended, nebulous, whatever it may be.
Interesting. I'm feeling the Sun Saturn especially because for me all the threads of what you've explained have in common is that you like to be there for people who are going through big transformations in life, or people who just need someone who is stable. So there I see the seventh house stellium, right?
In what way?
Well, you're there for people.
Oh yeah,
Like you're
definitely.
so interested in them and what they're going through and what are their challenges, and how can they improve, and being there for your friends, and okay, they have something going on, and so now you want to listen and you're totally there for them, right? So Sun Saturn seventh, taking your job as a friend and as a partner in whatever circumstance very seriously, like wanting to give yourself to that.
For sure. um I also, just to add to that, like the most serious relationships I've been in romantically have been with people, like I don't want to say I'm attracted to sadness, but like there is something attractive to somebody having like a range in affect for me. Like I can't just be with somebody who's always like, or at least I haven't been with somebody who's always like operating on a higher vibration all the time. And that sounds maybe a little bit toxic, but just like on from my past experiences, like the most significant romantic partnerships I've been in have been with um people who are either like coming off of something very traumatic, like the death of a family member or something, or just like um, can access the deepest parts of themselves and aren't like afraid to show it.
Mm. I especially like being with people who are coming off of something very traumatic. I immediately sense the Aries, because Aries is that sudden
Mm.
change that pushes you into a new life, a new beginning. And you're there to walk them through those hard times. Sun, Saturn, Aries in the seventh. Does that make sense
And
to
how
you?
does this Saturn impact that? Because to me, Saturn, like I'm going through the return right now, and to me, it's just a lot of like, like general knowledge of it is just like limitations, lessons, challenges. So how does it impact what you just explained,
Well,
like the dynamic?
how are things going right now? Tell me about a little bit about how your relationships are going with people.
Mhm. For the most part, really, really well. Like I have like a solid community of friends who show up for me, care about me, vice versa. Um, my younger sister, she and I share a birthday, but we're not twins. Um, just moved in to my apartment in New York, so it's just me and her. Whereas before I was living alone, so that is also bringing a little piece of home. Um, to like what may have been like more of an isolating experience, which I don't mind, but in a general sense, pretty good. I do think I oscillate between, okay, like I have enough friends, like I don't need to make any more, versus like being open and curious about other people that I might meet, especially in a city like New York, where there is a lot of spontaneous opportunities to connect with new people, right? And so, where do I put new people, or like how do I like take them? is something I like go back and forth between like, oh, I have enough friends, so like I don't need to like approach this as um I would sort of maybe like in my early 20s when I was like looking to make more friends versus like, oh no, you should be more open to being surprised by people and seeing how they may fit into your life.
Okay, there I hear your Saturn return already. Because
Mm,
think about it, it's happening like in your seventh, eighth house, basically. And you're asking yourself these questions about new Aries friends, seventh house, and how do I bring them in?
mm,
Right. So there's one small level of that. But of course, it's much more. Think a bit more. Think a bit more about
yeah,
what's happening. Well, okay, what are your. Okay, let's work with one of Saturn's words, a challenge, a roadblock. Where are you
yeah,
with those at the moment? Where is your big roadblock? Where do you feel you're being held back?
yeah. I think um maybe like just like we could like start with like just intimacy. I think as like a source of frustration for me or like a challenge for me currently. I used to be like when I was younger, like just more carefree about being vulnerable and intimate with people in multiple senses of the word. So like not just physically, but like I do think now I'm a bit more reserved, which I appreciate. Like I've there's a lesson even before the return and kind of just valuing that as sort of something that isn't accessible to everyone. But I don't know if I like overcorrected and now it's like a bit more closed off than I would like. In the dating sense, I'm not like a prolific dater. I'm not dating like I would say like my dating life is like maybe in terms of like on an Aries scale, 10 being like pedal to the metal, like maybe like a five, where I'll like enjoy conversations, flirt, but not, and I desire partnership for sure, but like I'm something about me is hesitating, and I feel like I'm not as propelled forward as maybe some other aspects of my life where Aries is sort of propelling me forward, maybe through conversation or just like my work ambition or whatever, as I am in dating.
Okay. Do you see that now? Do you hear the Saturn return in the
I
seventh?
do, I do. Hmm.
Are you
I
going,
do.
are you meeting people like once, twice, and then it kind of falls apart?
Um, Sometimes yes, like I'm meeting people a couple of times and then something might happen or maybe something won't even happen and I'm just like, I don't know if this is right. And I'm less down to like see it through than I may have been in the past. And I also do feel like more comfortable with maybe like not even just like past full blown relationships, but just like past connections. Like, is there something to revisit here instead of it maybe being like me meeting somebody new?
Okay. Right. So it's a lot of in this where we got to the conversation now. I see it's a lot around relationship for you, the awkwardness
Mm-hmm.
and like starting, Saturn and Aries wanting to take off but being stopped, right? So wanting for a relationship
Mm-hmm.
to grow and you just start, but then it gets cut off before it goes too far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, and same with like the Saturn return, because it's like the first time you complete the 30-year sequence, and so also going back to the people that you've known in the past, and oh, is there something left here? Or can we just close out this chapter? Because you're in the middle of the Saturn return, it's not finished.
No, I think I actually just started. Like, didn't Saturn just come into Aries? I
Right,
do think my Saturn's is at 9 degrees.
right.
I think it's past 9 degrees, right? If I'm not mistaken, like the current Saturn
But
is
it's gonna retrograde
it
back to
is retrograde. No, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. So, like I'll get it right over my natal Saturn soon again, but I do feel like it's happened oddly like very quickly, even though it is sort of like a years long process. I think the point about revisiting is that I do feel like a different person than I was even just 5 years ago. And so if there are people that I've met at that time that have meant something to me that still mean something to me, and vice versa, it's like, well, I think it would be a disservice to not share that sort of like growth to see if there's anything there.
That is so interesting. See, most people would never think of that. I certainly wouldn't. Right. So there I
About,
see the seventh house for you, the Sun Saturn being there. So like the
mm,
recognition of those people, the maintenance of those relationships, the revisiting and wanting to share yourself as you've grown, Sun Saturn
yeah,
seven with those people.
yeah,
Okay. What
because
about
they've meant a lot to me. So it just makes sense, or at least that just naturally makes sense for me to be like, well, this has been important for you.
and I immediately
So I
hear
want
the
to,
sun in the seventh and Venus,
yeah,
right? So that extra care
yeah.
and love that you have for people, that your attention is more there than for the rest of us.
Hmm.
Okay, let's do one more. Tell me about where you can notice
Okay.
Saturn return in your work.
Like a challenge, a roadblock. I'm trying to think if I could have a
Yeah, like,
segment.
or is there like a big project you guys are working on that's taking a lot of your attention, and there's problems and you're trying to figure them out?
Yeah, I mean, so like I'll give like just like a few things that come to mind real quick. But like in terms of a project, there's like this uh like really famous program called, or global health initiative called PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. This has saved like 26 million lives throughout the global south since its inception over 20 years ago, um, by providing like funding and programming and services to like those countries to combat the epidemic. That program has like been shuttered down for like the past year since Trump came into office and his like America First agenda. And so there is a lot, especially in my role, there is a lot of like hitting the wall in terms of like what can we do to like get some of this funding and resources back to the people over. There's like a big gap between me and obviously the recipients of this funding or the program, like both geography wise and then also just like disposition. And so like that has been hard, like working in a coalition with people to like try to come up with ideas to like influence like a reversal of the decision. It's like shown up constantly for the past 2 years. Like we think we make strides, and then there's news that like we're taking a few more steps back. I think in a more general sense, like I'm um like not down for the current. I don't know how public this is going to be, so I'm just going to speak in more vague terms. But I'm not down for the current like authority structure at my job. Like me, sort of like not sort of answering to myself and like taking cues from those in executive leadership or just even in other coalitions. Like I wish, I yearn for more independence in my work, like more of that a third authority to be like bestowed upon myself instead of like needing to get permission, and therefore it becomes less fulfilling because I feel like I'm doing somebody else's job.
Very good. Okay, do you hear the sun in Aries now?
The independence, yeah, for sure.
Yes, that you so badly want to just have more decision-making power and be independent. But
Hmm.
what's happening in your chart? The sun is conjunct Saturn. So you don't have that independence. It's blocked. And
Yeah.
it's happening in the seventh house. So you need permission from someone else.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm. It does. It does. Like the Aries gives like a yearning or a desire to be like in charge
To be
of
free.
steering this ship. Yeah, to be free. And Saturn's putting limitations on that, and it's happening in a house that's like relational.
But I
So
want
yeah,
to point out something else about this, that you have Sun
yeah,
conjunct Saturn in your chart in general, and that you work with the law and with the government and with systems of disbursement that don't depend on you in the first place. It's once again, it's like a structural thing. So
hmm
Sun
so
Saturn, but you're always a part of that larger governance structure, at least in this first part of your life.
yeah, it's like an evergreen theme. Um, like whether that authority comes in the shape of like an executive or just societal structures, nodes of power that I'm responding to or like working within.
Exactly. All right, let's pause there for today.
Okay, excellent.
So what do you
Thank
think?
you.
Did all that make
I
sense
really
to you?
appreciated that. Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you just like kind of posing a prompt and then asking me for feedback and like allowing me in that sense to kind of like guide the direction. I appreciate the guardrails that you did provide, and saying like we'll get to that in a second. I want to focus on this right now. And then sort of just like your summary of how the stories that I share, the experiences that I share kind of relate back to the planets that we're looking at.
Okay, very good. Thanks for that. I'm gonna
Of course.
stop recording then. So Ahmed and I are gonna sign out. Goodbye to everyone.
Alrighty.